So Angela's waving over here. Angela asked to be appointed to HPC, but she is also on ARB. So she's gonna serve on both, and she can probably tell you a little bit more about what she does, and then you guys can introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so I am on the ARB. I am a licensed architect, so it's all that. And I've worked in historic preservation actually for most of my career, which has been about 25 or so years. And I just thought, I wouldn't mind seeing what this is about too. My last child just graduated from high school last year, and so we are empty nesters. So, a little extra time in there, might as well do something with it that's useful. So, that's me.
Jane, do you want to tell?
I'm Jane Porchy. I'm still new to this board. My experience in Webster Groves is 3 houses, 50 years, and being president of the Historical Society for a few years. So I also have an interest in what goes on this committee.
I'm Ann Halvox. I've been on the HPC for 3 years, I think. My husband and I have lived in Webster for 11 years. We live in a century home. It turned a century when we owned it. So I did a lot of research to get the plaque and found out a lot about the original owners. And I just always loved the history of Webster. I went to Webster University. So this has just always interested me. It's a fun commission to be on.
I'll go in order. Michael.
Hi there. I am Michael Rose. I too live in a century home, although it just turned 100. I think, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I'm not sure when it turned 100 or turns 100 because I've gone through 1918, 1919, 1920. And now I'm going on 1921 and 22. I still need to look at, but I haven't found a permit yet for my house. So I don't know if that means there's potentially no record for my house and it just is a non-existent structure, or, if maybe that permit was lost somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, that is me. I live in an area of Webster where you can stand in one spot and hit a Pentrix home in any angle with a rock that you decide to throw. So that's kind of what brought me here.
Doug, do you want to go ahead? I'll have Steve go while we figure out why yours won't.
There, okay.
Oh, there we go.
Why it wasn't coming on.
Now you're
Hi,
welcome. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
No,
Where
go
we
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I won't be long. I'm the longest serving member at this point. There was a time when I was an alternate and was the youngest for the longest, and now it's flipped quite a bit. So we've got a lot of new blood on the committee, and which is exciting. I live in a century home too, and I'm interested in preserving the history of this community, and which is why I'm on the committee. I also am interested in how we can help serve the community to promote the preservation of it. So we're happy you're, gosh, double dipping on committees. That's pretty amazing, or boards. Thank you for doing that.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm Steve Stovall. I am the other architect. I've been on the board for 2 years, I think, 2.5 maybe. I live in an almost century home. Michael, I feel your pain. I dug all the way from 1908 to 1925 before I found our building permit. So it's in there. Just keep looking.
So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys, to make it easier, I didn't make copies of all the packets. It was a waste of paper. So what I was going to do is share the screen. I pulled up the agenda so we can kind of go through the packet as needed. Can you all see that? Perfect, okay. And then I'm gonna move this down because we don't need, oh, and Karen, sorry. And Karen Alexander is our council member representative. Okay. And so I think we've got everybody and we're good to go. So the first thing we need you to do is approval of minutes. If I need to, does anyone need me to click on the minutes to actually pull them up on the screen, or are you good? Okay.
I think they look good. I move that we approve the minutes.
I will second that motion.
I'm gonna have you act as chairperson. Oh, wait, we did vote you as chairperson. I forgot.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving last month's minutes? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
So if you want to go down the agenda, we have no certificate of appropriateness hearings.
Okay, any visitors?
I do not see any visitors. Let me
Alright.
check and make sure there are no other, nope, no visitors.
So our new business, the election of vice chair and secretary. I know last month we postponed that because we didn't have enough members and we knew there was gonna be possibly some new people joining us. So I don't know I guess Brendan's the only one we're missing.
We're missing Brendan and Daisha.
Deja. So I don't know if that's something, again, we want to postpone or if we should.
I'm fine either way. I can continue to take minutes again this month. It's not a big deal. And the vice chair is mainly so that if you were unavailable, that we'd have someone to serve. So we are probably fine to hold off and push that to next month if everyone's agreeable to that.
Unless anybody who's in attendance is interested in the vice chair position.
Yes. Or the secretary
Or the
position.
secretary.
Crickets.
Maybe we should let everybody think on that a little bit because we will need a vice chair and a secretary. So, you guys think that over and maybe next month we can kind of revisit that, hopefully have some volunteers or nominations.
I'll put it on for next month. And for the minutes, they're very simple. They're not verbatim. They're just a quick summary. They're usually never more than a page and a half, unless there's a big hearing. And there is kind of a formula to it, so I can give you old past ones and you can kind of do some copying and pasting.
Okay. So the next item we discussed last month was the possibility of drafting a letter in regards to the Douglas Hill development project to city council.
So you had sent me,
So I had printed off the Sustainability Commission letter that they had submitted in regards to this. I also printed off Dave's historic information that he presented to us. So I had just kind of put some bullets together based on the letter and kind of what we were discussing. Maybe would be some things that we would want to include in a letter. It's pretty rough, but I don't know if you guys want to review that.
make sure in case we get an attendee. There we go.
So I'm not sure where everybody stands on wanting to draft a letter, if it's something that you feel we should do, even kind of your stance on what you feel should be included in the letter. I personally think it's kind of important because we did have a visitor join in one of our meetings, that presented us some information and kind of hoped that that was something that we would look into doing. I think also because other commissions, maybe, I don't know if there's multiple that have submitted anything yet, or if it's just the sustainability.
So far, just sustainability. I know some of the other ones do wish to talk about it.
So I just feel, given the area, it is a historic area, you know, there's a couple century properties there. So I feel like it's kind of nice for us to have a voice in regards to that. So I just kind of put together some thoughts that I personally have on it. I don't know if you guys have anything to add, or if there's anything that you don't agree with or think we should omit.
One thing I think that would be good to add in when it says something about recommending historic names and so forth, something that they continuously put in there is that they're gonna call it Main Street. And I think that we should not have a Main Street, you know, we have our Main Street already. We don't need something called Main Street,
Right.
just sort of a, you know, isn't quite right. And there's plenty of names that would be historically appropriate for that area otherwise. so.
And I mean, so this is our May meeting that he, so we had a concerned citizen, who was a visitor during one of our meetings, Dave Buck, and he pulled some information from the historic walks, from the Historical Society, and kind of presented us with some of those facts. And that was one of his kind of concerns, was that it was very generic in an area that has such a deep, rich history that even some of it has been lost. I mean, the original church was burned down and then rebuilt. So he had a lot of information that he pulled. You know, there's names of, they're just stuck right now.
Yeah, I think.
You know, like a
that was
preacher's
attached.
name, like Ken Langford, so it could be like
Yeah.
Langford Avenue, or, you know, like something like
Yeah,
that,
there's
that's
lots of
gonna,
names, yeah.
yeah, so I definitely think that that's something that's important to include in this letter, that we think that is something that needs to be considered in this project.
Yeah, I also would like to see a bit more of a buffer around the church. Because I've worked on many projects that's where historic preservation is involved with developers, and typically they will offer more consideration for what's historic. You know, they won't do the just build right up to it, who cares attitude.
Right.
And they'll have a little bit more consideration for that. And sometimes, and maybe even do something as far as plaques or something that helps out with the area.
Right.
They'll offer that in as
Yeah.
part of what they're doing.
And I know in like the Sustainability Commission's letter, they did mention, obviously that's their focus, but they talked about, you know, losing some of the trees along Shady Creek. And I feel like that we can kind of tie into that as well, because through some of the facts that we learned, you know, with the original church, they would worship in that area under the trees. And some of those trees have been there for a century or more. So I feel like we can kind of tie into that with the historic factor. I don't know if that's, again, overstepping a commission.
What do you think about our commenting on the architecture of the buildings themselves? That those, they're obviously not going to be historic because they're new, but to have them built in a way that would preserve the historic look of downtown Old Webster.
And I mean, I did put that in there, but again, I didn't
Oh,
know
where's
if that's
that?
something that's overstepping. It's the last one, the last bullet.
Oh, you do. I
And
don't
I
think
didn't
so.
know if that's,
Yeah.
you know, if there's, a fine line between what we can and cannot recommend or.
So.
I don't think you have any overstepping. I mean, that's a really big statement to make, but I mean, these are your ideas and your suggestions and things that you, from a Historic Preservation Commission perspective, would like to see considered in this development. So I know you've said that a couple of times, so that's the only reason I'm jumping in. It's just like, please don't hesitate to put forward your concerns or your wish list.
And definitely your ability to put these things into an idea, and then if the council determines that they do want it in there, we will figure out where it needs to go. So for example, when you do name the street, it's named when they plat it. And we have a section of when they have to plat they have to consolidate all the lots and create the easements and the easement for the street. And that's when they're going to name it. Now, some of the naming is going to be tied to, they have to check with St. Louis County first and get permission before they can name something. So there are going to be some steps with that. And then the same thing with the architecture. I mean, we already have in there, I mean, everything goes to ARB. You know, there is always a suggestion of it looking historic, but many times, I mean, there's been a lot of conversation when more modern designs have come forward and actually bring forth and echo some of the rhythm of windows and other things like that, that can still bring some of the historic in without trying to mimic the exact historic. So think about that when you know, tying your hands of certain things, because there are, you know, if you were telling me you were going to be doing an addition onto one of the historic structures, I would totally agree with you. But think a little bit about, you know, there are modern buildings in Old Webster, and there are buildings of many different styles and architecture in Old Webster. So making sure that the ARB has that ability. And we did encourage in the code section that is the draft recommendation, it does encourage having balconies and windows and articulation on the facade. And there's a whole series of things that encourages them to not have a big blank, you know, or big flat facade. And it includes some additional setbacks that lets them go into the setback with balconies and things like that. So, but anything and everything, you throw that in there, and then that way that letter goes to the council. And if the council deems that it's something that they also agree with, they'll just ask us where it needs to go. Some things would probably be more along the lines of maybe part of the development agreement versus the ordinance, and they'll make that determination. And I did, since I saw it on your thing, I did bring, just so that you could see, because I knew the trees were going to come up. And I apologize to those of you that are on Zoom, but the tree preservation plan actually does include, and this is only a draft of it, this is not anywhere final, but it includes actually saving the trees that are down by the church. So it is saving trees that are closest to the church area, the church parking lot, and that sort of down that further area. So that's in there. And then I did bring the development plan in case there was another question that came up.
So I guess, my question I have about us drafting a letter, is that something that we need to put together tonight in this meeting? Is that something that we take people's thoughts, add more bullets, and then designate somebody to kind of put a draft together and then?
So because our timing is tight, we would not have time to meet again. So what I would say is, if you figure out what the key points are that you want, if someone is designated to draft it, and then I have the ability to send it out to everybody. You can't discuss, but if people have concerns with it, you can get the comments back to me. I can do a red line and send it back out again with everybody blind copied. And if you're all in agreement and everything looks good, then I can send it on to council in the packets.
So then, Mara, would that be read into the comments because we're having the public hearings or what have you? I mean, how would that be
I would
with the
have to
council
check.
meetings?
I'd have to check with Dr. Peoples. The way that they have it right now said is if something is just coming as a someone's letter and they're not in attendance, that is just being put into the packet. There might be something different that's done because it's coming from a commission and a group, and groups are given 6 minutes versus 3 minutes for just an individual of the public. So I will have to check and confirm. I don't believe at Plan Commission, we read no, we actually didn't read the sustainability letter at Plan Commission because it arrived between meetings and we'd already kind of closed the hearing. So the sustainability one just went into their packets to read.
But so based on timing, there may be an opportunity to have this read at the meeting.
Correct. And I'll find out on that.
Would that require like one of us members to be there to read it, or?
Well, you can do it via Zoom. So if someone was designated to read it, it could be read via Zoom or at the meeting. And it's the next meeting that's coming up of City Council that they're going to just open up for public comment. Now, they gave a deadline to all of us for the commissions because there is also a TIF commission meeting. And so they were kind of putting those letters out to both of those groups.
So when would we have to have our letter completed?
Sorry, it was in my email. I can see if I can find it. I want to say, let me see if I can get into it. Oh no, I can't anymore. Sorry, they upgraded our email and I'm still getting used to how.
Was that the email you sent us about Douglasville feedback?
Yes, you can find it faster than me.
November 12th, Friday, November 12th.
That. No, did I say
Board of Commissions wishes to make any thoughts or recommendations known to the council. Please provide them in writing by Friday, but November 12th.
Okay, then that would be correct.
Okay.
So that gives us some time, but I think it was. We would have time. You do, your next meeting is November 9th. So you would have some time
But
if you wanted to.
most likely, since
Just a
it's
little.
that close, we would probably want to have it drafted up and then maybe a final read at that.
That's what I was
meeting.
thinking, like
Okay.
you could still talk in person versus me sending comments around, because you can't talk via email. So yes, you do have some time that if you wanted to have a draft pulled together and then put it in the packet for next month's meeting, you'd still have time to get it to both the commissions, the council and the commission.
I guess I'm kind of curious what other members are thinking regarding this issue. Anybody has any thoughts?
So as I'm just Googling random things not random things, specific to Shady Creek, I came across, and I haven't read through it all, so I would need to, but I came across a memorandum to the Plan Commission from October 1st, 2018 regarding the Rolling Ridge stuff. I mean, technically 2018 would be historical. So if these letters are in any way pertinent, like one of them, again, just from skimming, it looks like they are not necessarily for any type of destruction to that area.
Can you tell me which letter that is? Because there was two different elements. The area behind Rolling Ridge, which is the Shady Creek area, that's the nature preserve. So there were some letters about the nature preserve, which does not continue into this area. So there is a little bit of a difference between the two. And I just want to make sure that's clear in the Rolling Ridge, because they were intending to build right up to it and not make improvements to any of the flood areas. So that was a slightly, again, there are still issues, but I just want to make sure that when you're looking at that one is, and it's not really the creek. Again, you can put as much as you want in your letter, but the creek I know has been addressed or is being addressed by sustainability and green space, I think, and parks because of the nature preserve. So I do want people to focus on what is your commission, what is your, a lot of what is your commission doing? So I'm not sure, Michael, what you saw in that letter that was tied to historic. Just a
So
question.
yeah, for sure. So I put the link to the PDF in the chat section.
Oh, perfect, okay.
Mhm.
There it is. Figure out what this. Was it in? Is this what you're saying, Michael? Was this the link?
Yeah, the link in the chat section for the hosts and the panelists.
No, can you, oh, you can't see what I've, opened. Hold on. Was it this, public comments?
I believe so.
Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, these are, yeah, okay, so this is.
And like I said, I hadn't read through anything. I saw it, I skimmed it, I saw a couple things. So I thought I would bring it forth, but if I was taking a closer look at it, if it's not within
Yeah.
what
A
our
lot of
purview
this
would
was-
be,
was
that's
specifically related to the nature sanctuary, which is behind Rolling Ridge. But there's, I mean, again, there's still information, but yeah, they were really focused on the nature sanctuary. Nature sanctuary, because it was impacting right adjacent to the nature sanctuary.
so I guess that would be what happened. Okay.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure there was something from the Open Space Commission at one point as part of the packet. And that was related again to the nature sanctuary. And then some of this was information that residents had researched themselves.
So where does the actual sanctuary go? Like, where does it start? Where does it end? Because from what, and I realize I trust Google way too much. So I am willing to put that out there. But according to, you know, Dr. Google know-it-all, it starts at Northbury Road and goes all the way just past Marshall. Is the actual sanctuary itself, is that incorrect? Is what I'm
No.
seeing you shake your
No,
head.
that's not correct.
Okay.
So the nature sanctuary has it's a very small area. It goes basically from Elm to Gore on Kirka. So it is just, sorry, interactive map. Are you're not able to see this yet because I haven't shared this yet. Go back to Zoom, share screen, share. Okay, so the nature sanctuary is this 130, 116, and 112. It's those three pieces of property.
Okay.
And the development area, again, it's near it. It is definitely near it, but the development area is here. And then the nature sanctuary goes through, so it then goes through a couple commercial properties and behind someone's private property. And then it starts at down here at 130 West Kirkham. And it's 130, 116, and 112. But that is the only section of the nature sanctuary. So the focus was, because of the way that they were proposing to develop Rolling Ridge here, they were doing some things right up at the top of the creek and building right up at the top of the creek. And there was no improvements happening to the area, and then the water was just going to run down. And their concern was what was going to happen in that area especially with the edge of the nature sanctuary right there.
And that was not allowed to go through.
It wasn't that it wasn't allowed to go through, they withdrew. Yeah, they withdrew their application. The owner passed away in the middle of their rezoning. And then they did go forward a little bit, and then they decided to just regroup and start something new. So they did recently come through and they're doing some things with their existing building instead of a building on top of this area back here.
So this was being proposed by the owners of Rolling Ridge?
This is years ago, Karen. This was a project, a planned commercial project that did not go through, that they withdrew.
Right, I understand that, but that was, so this information that Mike shared was from 2018. So that was when this was proposed?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
One thing I would like to say, to go back to the letter information, I think that something we should emphasize is the space should be used as sort of, in developing the buildings and so forth, they should be a cultural connection. So, because we have, that's sort of the situation right now. You know, the reason for even having like a residential bridge that goes over the railroad tracks would be to connect things. So we want to connect Old Webster and North Webster is the idea, to get everything drawn together. We don't want anything that would make it feel like a barrier or
Disconnected.
anything like that. We want connecting. So we want to connect the culture. You know, historic preservation is all about cultural resources. That's what we are here for. So connecting those two things. And I guess for me, I actually saw the original RFP and everything as that was a little bit of the reason for it even. It's that this area here is maybe not used in the way that we could use it. So let's see what we could do. So that would be very important to make some sort of, and I don't even know how else to word that as far as using cultural resources, I guess is what I want to say. So, you know, use those old buildings of downtown and the buildings that are, you know, the church, whatever it is, there's connection, real connection there. And that really needs to be emphasized. I can't say I see it at all in the plan that they've shown us. So, you know, it would be something that would be, could be very nice, you know, if someone really looked at that. So,
Right, I agree. The second to last bullet that I included about preserving a section of Shady Creek, the wooded area, and some of the historic information that was provided to us. The preacher who, I guess, originally kind of was starting the original church that was there, we have just commentary saying that he began preaching just after the war in 1865 in a brush arbor alongside Shady Creek. The trees there also provided shade for those who attended the services. So that's why I felt like it was kind of important for us, even though it's not a structure, that area has been around, obviously, since, you know, forever, but was kind of initially started to be used in the mid 1800s. And so I feel like it's kind of a historic area for us to try to preserve at least some of that. And I know, Mara, you showed us the trees alongside the church. But I do think that's something worth reiterating in our letter.
yeah, I think that's definitely a good thing to focus on. Is it
Then you would-
and use something. I mean, even if they could do something there.
Right,
you know.
kind of that, even though it's not a structure, it is historic, and, you know,
It's a
part
cultural
of Webster's past and North Webster happened there. And we would
Yes.
like to see some of that preserved and not lost.
So, and that's a cultural landscape. So, you know, it truly is, actually, very much so.
And that's ironic because I actually just had a conversation with Pastor Hayes about the ability to, or looking into making that area, not specifically the church, but that area, because correct me if I'm wrong, Mara, but I think that you can have an area or a location be designated on the historical preservation from a national perspective. list. And we just finished talking about that and the land, because I know there's been multiple changes. The original church was burned down. Church was rebuilt. This current structure's had quite a few renovations, but the land, that location has historical significance.
Yeah, that could be nominated. Definitely could be nominated if you ask me. I mean, I've seen many things that are a lot less significant than that nominated. And, you know, land is nominated all the time. Places like a battlefield, that's all it is.
Right.
So, this is,
That's interesting. I mean, Mara, like mostly when we're talking about designating something, it's a building or a structure, and we have to find, you know, deeds and things like that. How would, I mean, I don't even know what a process would be like going.
It's just the same.
It is.
Yeah, it's just the same. And sometimes when we do designate a structure, we designate the structure with the land, because there is a significance to the land. And then one of the projects from before you came on, they did create a monument, not that it was, we were designated, but the monument for where the high school used to be. So, you know, there are a lot of ways that you can designate an area, whether it's a land or a landscape. There are things that are designated as historic landscapes.
How would that work, given that this area is under talks of development? I mean, is that something that?
So it depends on, I mean, so when you are designated a landscape, that's a different thing, because then you're wanting to not touch the landscape. But if there's an area that you want to designate, just because it's being developed does not mean, you know, it would still be a physical area that could be done with some sort of monument or tied into the church itself. So it could be a combination of the church and some of the land with the church, but it can overlap with, you know, which would then perhaps limit what could be done on it in the future in terms of additional structures or other things like that. But I don't think you can necessarily, you can't just designate like a certain tree. I mean, there are trees of distinction, but not a historic designation of a tree or a couple of trees. But I mean, we can look into, it's in your ordinance that you can designate land area, and we could, and it's, again, it's a similar process.
I guess I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, just because the developers have a plan. So it's like, I don't know how.
But again, you're talking about the developers have a plan. This is just this is the rezoning. The rezoning puts a set of regulations around what they can and cannot do. So they give us a preliminary plan and we work off of that. It doesn't mean that we say you can do everything that's on that plan. We establish a set of regulations. So the regulations could include, sometimes it's you must do something, sometimes it's we encourage you to do something. So it just depends on how the council moves forward with the series of recommendations. Right now, there's like 8 pages of recommendations. So you can, again, this letter is not designated what the recommendations are. This letter is saying, here are things we think are important so that the council can debate whether there are additional things they want to add to the ordinance.
And keep in mind that nothing has been finalized. So and just because I've had a couple of conversations, you know, with business owners and with people in the community, and you know, there's a misconception that this is a done deal and all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and all of that, but that's absolutely not the case. That's why we are asking for input, for suggestions, you know, for your voices, and letting everybody really saying what they would like to see or things that they have concerns about, because nothing has been finalized. And as Mara's saying, that the more information we have, the more information we have to incorporate into our decision making.
And just so you know, in the historic preservation section of the code, the definition of site, so you can have a historic site, shall mean the traditional, documented, or legendary location of an event, occurrence, action, or structure significant in the life or lives of a person, persons, groups, or tribe, or any place with evidence of past human activity. Sites include but are not limited to cemeteries, burial grounds, occupation and work areas, evidence of farming or hunting and gathering, battlefields, settlements, estates, gardens, groves, river crossings, springs, wells, routes and trails, caves, quarries, mines, or significant trees or other plant life. So, I mean, that really is all in there as a site, that you can, as the definition of a site for designating a site. So just throwing that out there.
So, and one thing that's important to remember too, is that everything you say could be helpful.
Mhm.
So, you know, if you tell them something, you know, where something happened or whatever, you don't know if they know that or not, right? So, you know, that's always good to mention it, because at this point, this is, in a way, this is a suggestion, this plan.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
just-
and definitely, that's why I feel like our commission should submit something
Yeah.
in regards to this, just given that it is a historically significant area. I mean, I'm more than happy to be the one to draft a letter. Obviously, I would, you know, like any feedback that you guys have, to make sure that everybody's voices and opinions and thoughts are gathered with this.
And if it helps, I mean, you could do an initial draft. Other people could send information to me that I could share with you. We could at least do one round via email before we get to the meeting on the 9th. Because there might be some things like, again, Michael's looking up some stuff about Shady Creek. There might be some things from Shady Creek that he can find
Right.
that could still be integrated in. I just want to make sure we, you know, clarify where our sources are coming from. Because there's a lot out there that are simply like someone has found something and then they've rewritten it the way they want it rewritten. And so I want to always check our sources on things, but there is important information out there. So we could do it that you could start an initial draft if people, like if there's anyone that says, no, one of these bullets is bad, or that they don't agree with it, then that's fine. But if they're in agreement with your 5 bullets, there's a little bit of additional information I think I wrote with cultural landscape and cultural connections, which could tie in with what you've talked about. But if you wanted to do a draft, you could get it to me, I could send it out. And then if anyone else has other information that they want to add, we could do one round blind copying before we get to a final on the 9th.
Angela got my attention when you said Main Street. I think one simple thing that can be suggested is pertinent names, historical names. Maybe the North Webster book has some names that would be important for us to include. So that this becomes something that's living, names we remember, names that we know are important. We don't want Main Street to be something, and I'm sure they just use that as something that they can do, but submitting names that are important to the community. And I said, maybe just the North Webster walk would provide us some names of people that for generations.
I think that's actually where Dave pulled some of his
I think
information
so too.
from.
I-
But I agree with you. I think it's definitely honoring the past in an area that if it's going to be changing, we need to acknowledge what was there.
It's the change that scares us so much. And if it's not showing us that we're changing, but not losing sight of past, I think it's helpful.
Yeah, and I think actually, like you said, putting down those names would be
Mhm.
great. Then people hear them and hear what they are. And you could even do that. Everyone, you know, so we say we do get all these buildings, every building is gonna have a name.
Sure.
So, you know, we don't really want a developer to name them. We would prefer to be
Right.
the namers. So.
It's
and
not
you-
like a ballpark where you name it after a corporation. You know, we
Exactly.
really need to pick significant names to the community, and we have a perfect opportunity for names that are important to North Webster.
Can I ask a quick one? Do we have any ideas to, so I know part of the plan is to have apartments or condos or something like that. Do we know what the planned cost of that housing is?
You mean as in what they're gonna rent or sell for, or are you asking?
Yeah.
So they are not, that's not something that we consider in a rezoning. The cost of those are not considered. I know that they asked that question of the applicants at one point, and there was, I believe, a brief discussion. There is a 10% workforce housing that is supposed to be sort of based on the idea that if a teacher right now
A
wants
first
to,
year teacher.
a
was in
first-year
the article.
teacher
Yeah,
wants to live here, right now they can't afford to live here. So they are looking at like a first-year teacher salary as the workforce type housing. So it is a mix, but there's 10% designated for the workforce. There's probably more information if you look online, but again, I don't take into account what it's going to sell or rent for, because that's not for me how you craft your zoning ordinance. There will be other elements that the city council will consider when it comes to a redevelopment agreement. And there might be things that they put in there regarding that, but that isn't a factor that we consider in rezoning.
There is a lot of information on the Webster Grove City website. There's lots of information about the development. So you can find out all kinds of things.
So if you go here, and if you go,
I do know that they've said prices for things. They have said that they are not low price, and the 10% workforce housing is for during the TIF period only. So, you know, it has to be subsidized or market value makes it different. So
so this page
Okay.
kind of gets you to just about everything. There's
Yep.
also a
Okay.
YouTube video for every meeting. If you need to find anything, if you go to City of Webster Groves YouTube. We actually have every meeting, including your Historic Preservation Commission meetings. Hold on, let me move this. Videos. So there's Architecture Review Board council meeting. So this was the last council meeting, and it was about 2+ hours long. And that's the full discussion that we had in regards to Douglas Hill. And then if you go back to Plan Commission, Sustainability, Plan Commission, this is the last Plan Commission meeting that we had where they voted on it, and we had a presentation on that. But they're all on here if you have additional questions, in addition to the main project page. Has questions and answers from the council meeting, has the staff presentation, has the developers presentation, or sorry, the TIF presentation, developers presentation, the full flood study from the engineers. So all of this, there's a lot of information on the website if there's additional questions that you want to think about in response to your letter.
So I guess, are we kind of in agreement that we would like to draft a letter to submit on behalf of this project? Does anybody have any oppositions to doing that?
I don't have any oppositions to it, but I wonder if it should be more broad brush type of how important historic preservation is, and maybe we don't drill down too deep into the merits of the project, because there might be individual members who have strong feelings one way or another, aside from historic preservation. It's not me, I'm just saying that it just could be something that, you know, that's more of a statement of how important historic preservation is. And here are some ideas that we want the council to take into consideration. And I actually really like your bullet points. I think that they're all relevant and good. And I think we should talk about architecture, even though ARB would also do it as well, just because we want to make that point. But I would just maybe just have it be more, you know, like a broad base, not make it opinionated maybe. I don't think yours is. I'm just a guide for, you know, when you're doing it as a collective group, as opposed to maybe how an individual on this committee might feel when if they were particularly, focused one way or the other. There's a lot of people in town who have very strong feelings both ways on this.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, right now, since we're talking about it, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts that you would like to incorporate or anything standing out that you want to add to or focus on or whatnot. But like Mara said, if you can send those to her, we definitely want everybody who is in this commission to contribute in what they feel.
And I would recommend only giving everybody till like next Wednesday to get comments to me to give to you. So that then we have time to send it back out for everyone to review. And then time enough to get it back into the packets for the next meeting, because the packets will go out the first week of November. So we don't have a huge amount of time to be sending things back and forth. Right. So next Wednesday is, what's today? Today's the 12th.
13th, 20th.
So if you can get things to me by October 20, and I will send on to Ann.
If I could just make an editorial kind of comment, I know, Mike, the choice of Douglas Hill was to honor Frederick Douglass. Having spent the years that I did on the Historical Society, many of our streets in Webster Groves are named after slaveholders. We looked at, we made a request at one time to rename Southwest Park Hawken Park because it was there. The pushback was Hawken had slaves and he made rifles, and those things are not popular to us in this day and age. A good point, but this is an opportunity for us to acknowledge important citizens of North Webster and of significance to counteract some of the things that we're all used to now. The Lockwoods had slaves, the Swans had slaves. Anyway, that's an opportunity we have.
Okay. So do we have anything else to comment on this?
And I'm going to have to leave at around 7:30. It looks like you have a quorum though for the rest of the business items.
You guys do. You'll have a quorum if
Okay.
you do have to leave. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So we have 3 demolition recommendations. I believe these are all accessory structures.
Yeah, so 225 Baker, accessory structure built in 1923. A lot of times with the accessory structures, we don't have them go to you necessarily, or I don't say don't go to you, but they usually provide us with some pretty basic information. They believe, even though county records say it was built in the 1920s, they have the understanding it was actually built between 70 and 75, because the owners next door have lived there since the 1950s. So they showed us that one. We then have, oops, here's my, oh, I'll have to go back to this. The second one, I'm just gonna go through them real quickly, and then that way you can make some decisions on anything you want to discuss. This one's also built in 1920. The applicant purchased the property and is the owner of the single family dwelling house. And they have concerns because of neglect from previous owners. This one's a really weird, very strange one. It's a very, very long structure. And so they are asking for demolition of that one. And then the third one is one at Tuxedo. Accessory structure, according to records, built in 1911. And it didn't give us much information on it. Sorry. This is one that it was hit by 2 trees.
Exactly.
One and then another one. So this one almost was like just, I already said it was fine, but we put it in your packets just to be safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I noticed on your first page from the city, like it
Oh,
says down below on the letter, that staff recommends administration approval. So does that mean, do we still need to take a vote or?
So technically, the way that we wrote the ordinance, the accessory structures, to make it not be so difficult. If it was something like this, they could be administratively approved. If they are here around the time, if it's not gonna hold them up for other things that they're doing, we've been administratively approving. So that third one, I technically administratively approved so that they could move forward because it was dangerous and they needed to get it down. But yes, I always prefer that we have a vote on the record. Just that you've reviewed the packets and that you agree with staff's recommendation. I prefer that, it just makes it cleaner. But technically, yes, the garages and accessory structures we said could be administratively approved. And we would only bring it to you if there was really a concern. But we've been just trying to keep all of them going to you. So if you wanted to, while everyone's still here, if anyone had any concerns about any of them, you could also just, I could talk about them individually, or you could just go through and vote on each of them.
Okay. Does anybody have any concerns or questions regarding either of the properties?
Can we vote for or against the entire slate?
Yes, actually you can.
I would move that we agree with staff and approve the demolition permits for all 3 structures.
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor of demolition for all 3 accessory structures?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed?
Thank you. That one was quick.
Look at me
All right.
spending everybody's time.
Yeah. So before Doug leaves, and you're gonna go on to new business. So just as a reminder, you all at the last meeting had kind of narrowed down your projects. Had talked about the possibility of creating some subcommittees in case there were people that aren't on HPC that might be interested in any of these 3 research projects. So you have the ability to do that. And then there was some talk about if there were certain people that wanted to take any of these on themselves and kind of chair those committees, that you'd have that option. And I know that Steve had some additional information besides what he had sent, and I had linked what little information we had from each of them. I do have the folders here because I think I have more information than we actually scanned. So like on the Lustron homes, I actually have a pretty large stack of additional things and some additional information, including the list of where we think they all were. And then I know that a couple of these have been demolished since this list was pulled together. So we kind of talked about that too. So you can figure out how you want to proceed with the old business.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really haven't looked too much into it because I kind of wanted to focus on getting some thoughts together for the letter, since I know that's more of a timely issue that we need to address.
And if you decide, again, it's not a big deal if you did want to postpone having further discussion on this project. If you want to focus on the Douglas Hill piece, get that taken care of, and then try to get everybody to focus more. I know we keep saying we keep pushing things off, but it's not that we're pushing it off because we're not doing anything. There's a bunch of other things going on. So if you all wanted to push it off and do it at the next meeting, hopefully maybe with Brendan and Daisha in attendance. I know I keep saying that. I keep hoping we're gonna have a whole group.
Well, and hopefully by that meeting, we'll have our letter pretty much ready to go. So that'll be one thing kind of done off of our agenda. So I feel like then we might be able to focus a little bit more on.
The only thing to note is I believe we are going to have a certificate of appropriateness item on the next agenda. It's a very small accessory structure in a historic district. So you will have that at the beginning of your meeting. And then other than that, I don't think, I always say I don't think we're gonna have another demolition, but I never know.
When I looked at what you sent us about the 3 possible projects, my immediate thought was there were hundreds, thousands, perhaps of Lustron homes, but we don't have any great examples more than a couple. I mean, we have some that are in terrible condition, and that perhaps is not where I see us spending our time. We do have a lot of Sears homes and Joy Build homes, which to me make those much more viable projects. There are some nice Lustron homes in the St. Louis area, but not in Webster Groves.
Yeah, there's pretty much, I think, one left that's in decent, good condition. But other than that, most of them either have been covered
Right.
or are just in very bad condition.
I think there's 3 in North Webster.
There's actually quite a few. So the overall list, there are, hold on, we at one point had 21
Eldridge.
We had 21 originally at one point. But I know that the one on Hart has been demolished for a new house. I know that one of the ones on Simmons has been demolished for a new house. I believe there's at least 3 others that have been demolished. So we're definitely not, I think there were 4 removed out of the 21 from this list. And I think there's another 3 that have been removed since then. So we're getting, so there's one on Baker. No, that one was demolished too for a new house. The Baker one was demolished. There's one on Eldridge. There's 3 on Eldridge, 4 on Eldridge.
Right.
So there's 4 on Eldridge. 1 on Fair Oaks. The one on Hart was demolished for a new home. 2 on Hazel. There's 1 on Maple, but Schnucks is getting really close. They've taken, it was a rental house and it's in really bad condition. There's 1 on West Old Watson that's in pretty bad condition.
It's in terrible condition.
Plateau, now 505 Ridge is listed as a historic landmark. So I think they've done something with that one, which is the one that's in the best condition. There was another one removed off Ridge. I think there was another one moved off Simmons. Maybe 2 more removed off Simmons.
Did you mention the Edgar one? Maybe it doesn't face.
Oh,
Edgar.
that's the Ridge one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at Edgar Road and Ridge. And that's the one that here has notes of a historic landmark. So, I mean, it might be that you determine that you're gonna focus on the other 2. There is still a little bit here that I don't wanna forget about. Because when you forget about them, that's why they are being demolished. But if someone doesn't have a passion for this one, but at one point we did have a letter. We had letters that had gone out to the owners.
I think what moved me was that you had information from Indiana, from other states that had a lot of these, but when it boils right down to it, we don't have many left. And your point is well taken, I think. That might be the reason to raise the flag and say we need to do something.
But to your point, Joy Built homes are unique to Webster.
Exactly.
So that's something worth looking into.
When we are ready to talk about Joy Build homes, I put together some stuff to go over. Unfortunately, there's a stray cat on my back porch in our
I
cat.
just heard that. A very vocal
Hear that
cat.
vocal cat.
Maybe I need to table mine for,
Just
month.
give me 3 minutes and I'll get the cat out of here somehow.
okay. I apologize.
I'm gonna have to sign off. I like the idea of Sears Kit homes and Joy Build homes. And maybe we can put something together. Is there a way we could ask the community if anyone has an interest to be on a subcommittee? Can we do that through an article in the Webster Kirkwood Times or?
Yeah,
the
let me see what we can
Webster
do.
Page?
Yep.
As a longtime elementary school teacher, I realized I had this in my files.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's a children's book about houses that came in the mail.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
And it's all about the Sears built houses. So I pulled it out of my bookcase just to show you
Nice.
if you want to look at it.
So going back to that question, yes, we can send out, in fact, with our new social media, we'd be able to put it maybe on Twitter and on Facebook, as well as the city's website, that the Historic Preservation is looking to do some projects, and we could list that we're looking to do projects on Joy Built homes, Sears Kit homes, and possibly Lustron homes, and see if there's anyone who would be interested. So I can make sure we can get that out there. So I know Doug needs to go, but again, if you guys wanted to
Thanks.
If it was more important to move it to the next meeting, we will have more time. And if you want to focus on the letter this month, we could do that too.
I know personally, I want to focus on the letter because that's probably all I can accomplish from now until next month.
Fair
So,
enough.
Right. I will, I'll sit on my stuff for a month and get information to you. And I'll calm the cat down.
I'm hoping that's not our across the street neighbor cat that makes his way down towards you.
Now,
Gray, Russian blue, fluffy.
Oh, no. No, I think I've seen him going near the neighbor across the street cat. He's around the corner from me. He's down a few blocks from you.
Oh, really?
He's on,
our cat doesn't play
Rockville,
well with others.
between Simmons and Baker,
Oh, Rockville and Baker,
between Simmons and Baker,
between them. Okay.
in a joy built home.
Where do you live?
I'm on Yaddo, which is off of Baker at Rock Hill. If that's all you guys had and wanted to postpone these, I'm perfectly fine. I can put it on the next agenda. We can focus on the letter and hope that we can get everybody pulled together for next month. And then maybe possibly have more people in person. I don't know, we might still be at the same level of numbers in person. But that could give you time to focus and make sure you can get that letter done in time for that deadline so it gets to council in time. And then I can see if there's other stuff I can pull together. We can put, Steve, we could put your additional information and add it to the packet for Joy Built Homes if there's things that you wanted to add.
Actually, I wanted to show what I've developed, and it's not something that we can put in a packet.
Got it.
It's live documents that I've pulled together.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Okay.
All right, well, I guess if nobody has anything else to add or any questions, if somebody wants to make a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn.
I'll second
Second.
that.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
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 Thanks, everyone. Try to enjoy the lighter, cooler weather.
Oh, yes.
It's exciting.
And hopefully we'll see everyone again very soon.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Everyone.
And I'm happy to go through the Northwestern book.